There is a symbol you have seen on necklaces, on the walls of churches, on the flag of a nation. 6 points, 2 interlocked triangles, a shape so familiar that most people never stop to question what it is or where it came from. It is called the Seal of Solomon, and I want to tell you something about it that most scholars know and almost nobody has said plainly. Solomon never drew that sign, not once, not in the temple, not above his bedroom door, not in any document written in the 1,000 years after Solomon's death. The sign he actually drew, the one the angel handed him, is older, simpler, and more specific. And it is the one that actually works. Tonight I'm going to show you what the oldest written source says Solomon's seal really was, how the symbol most people call Solomon's seal became attached to his name, and exactly how to draw tonight the original sign above your bedroom door. The one that kept witches out, the one that bound demons, the one given to Solomon directly by Archangel Michael. This is not a revision, this is a restoration. Let me take you to the oldest source we have, not the Bible, something alongside it, in the sense that it documents a tradition the biblical text only implies. The Testament of Solomon. This is a Greek text that scholars date to somewhere between the 1st and 3rd century of the Common Era. It is structured as Solomon's own account, written in his voice, of how he commanded demons during the construction of the temple. Whether you read it as historical document, theological narrative, or ancient demonology, one thing is certain. It is the oldest written source that describes what Solomon's ring actually looked like. And the description is specific. The ring was engraved with a Pentalpha, a 5-pointed star, not a 6-pointed star, not 2 interlocked triangles, a Pentalpha. The Greek word for a figure formed by 5 alphas, the letter A drawn overlapping, to create a 5-pointed star. The symbol traced in one continuous line without lifting the pen, returning to the starting point. That is what the oldest text says the seal looked like, and that Pentalpha, the testament is explicit, was given to Solomon by the Archangel Michael himself. The text describes Solomon praying for help while building the temple. A demon called Ornias has been afflicting one of his workers, draining the boy's vitality through the thumb during the night hours. The attack happens while the boy is sleeping. Solomon prays directly to God, and God sends Archangel Michael with the ring bearing the Pentalpha, so that Solomon can, as the text says, lock up all demons of the earth, male and female. One 5-pointed star, from an archangel, given for the specific purpose of binding spirits. That is what the original seal was. Now let me show you how the 6-pointed star ended up with Solomon's name attached to it, because this is the part most people have never been told. And once you see it, you will understand how 2,000 years of attribution drift can make a medieval symbol appear ancient. The 6-pointed star, 2 interlocked triangles, has a long history in human art and decoration. It appears in ancient mosaic floors, in Roman art, in various Near Eastern decorative traditions. But its specific connection to Solomon, its identity as the Seal of Solomon, does not appear in any Jewish or Christian source until the 10th century of the Common Era at the earliest. The earliest documented association comes from Islamic mystical literature. In Arabic, the symbol is called Khatam Suleiman, the Seal of Solomon. This tradition developed in Islamic mysticism and magic between roughly the 10th and 14th centuries. In Islamic theology, Solomon, is given authority over the jinn, the unseen spirits. The Quran confirms this in Surah Sa'd, chapter 38. Suleiman is the prophet king who commanded wind and jinn and had authority over the forces of the unseen world. And medieval Islamic mystics attributed the 6-pointed star to this authority. From Islamic literature, the hexagram moved into Jewish Kabbalah, not the other way around. Gershom Scholem, the preeminent scholar of Jewish mysticism, documented this. The academic consensus is explicit. The specification of the seal's design as a hexagram seems to arise from a medieval Arab tradition. The hexagram did not enter Jewish symbolism as Solomon's seal until after Arabic mystical literature had already named it that. And as a distinctively Jewish communal symbol, the Star of David, worn by Jewish communities as an identifier, it dates primarily to 17th century Prague, approximately 2,600 years after Solomon's death. I am not telling you the hexagram is meaningless. I am not saying Jewish or Islamic traditions that use it have no validity. I am saying something much more specific. If you want the seal that Solomon received from the Archangel, the one described in the earliest written source, you are looking for the wrong shape. The original is a Pentalpha, 5 points, one continuous line, never lifting the pen. That is the documented seal. Now, why specifically the bedroom? This is where the Testament of Solomon becomes remarkable. The text does not catalogue demons in the abstract. It describes specifically what different spirits do and when they operate. And the opening of the entire story, the inciting incident that causes Solomon to pray for the ring in the first place, is a demon who attacks during sleep. Ornias. The Testament of Solomon, chapter 1. A demon torments a worker by draining vitality through the thumb at night, during sleep. The attack happens during the vulnerable hours, when the guard of the waking mind is lowered, when the body is still and the night has its full access. It is a sleep attack, and the ring that Solomon receives, the Pentalpha, is given in response to this specific attack, to bind the spirit that afflicts the sleeping. This is not incidental to the seal's origin. This is the context of the seal's origin. The Pentalpha was given to Solomon because a sleeping person was being harmed. The Testament goes on to catalogue dozens of other spirits. Multiple ones specifically target people during sleep. Multiple ones operate through the night hours, finding their entry when consciousness withdraws. Solomon's ring, the Pentalpha, was the counter-instrument, which is why the bedroom doorpost is exactly where the original seal belongs. This is not folklore built up without a source. This is the explicit founding document of the Solomonic seal tradition. The seal was made for sleepers. The doorpost of the sleeping room is where it belongs. But there is something else, something that will tell you this tradition did not evaporate after Solomon. It survived, and it survived in a form that you may be looking at right now without recognizing what it is. Let me show you something about the mezuzah, the small case on the doorpost, the one in every Jewish household, the one that Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 9 commands, "You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." Jewish law requires the mezuzah on every doorpost, including, and this is the detail most people miss, including bedroom doorposts. The mezuzah is not a front door custom. It goes on the bedroom door, on every room in the house that has a door. But it is the bedroom that concerns us most tonight. Inside the mezuzah parchment is a specific text, and on the outside of the parchment, or on the case itself, is a single Hebrew name, Shaddai. 3 Hebrew letters, Shin, Dalet, Yod. And here is what Shaddai means in the specific context of doorpost protection. The Talmud and the Zohar preserve a specific interpretation of this name. Shaddai is an acronym. Shomer Dlatot Yisrael, guardian of the doorways of Israel. Not simply a name for God, a specific title assigned to the mezuzah context, meaning the one who watches the doors. The Zohar, in the section called Sha'ar HaMezuzah, the gate of the mezuzah, describes in detail what the name above the doorpost does. It holds a demonic presence that waits at the left side of every threshold. The mezuzah on the right side of the doorpost, bearing the name Shaddai, holds that presence in check. Left side, right side, the doorpost as a spiritual battleground. And the room this tradition is most concerned with, the bedroom, the sleeping space. Where the body is still, the waking mind is lowered, and the night has its full access. Now, hold these two things together. The Testament of Solomon, the Pentalpha given by Archangel Michael to bind spirits who attack during sleep. The Jewish mezuzah, the name Shaddai, placed on the right side of the bedroom doorpost, meaning guardian of the doorways. 2 traditions, both descending from Solomon, both pointing to the same room, the same doorpost, the same function. The seal and the name were made for the same threshold. And the original practice combines both. A 5-pointed star drawn in one continuous line, and inside the star, at the center where the lines cross, the 3 letters that mean guardian of the doorways. The seal and the name, together above the bedroom door. That is the original Solomonic protection, not the famous sign, the older one. Three traditions preserved this. Let me show you all three, because this convergence is itself the evidence. First, Jewish. The mezuzah, Shaddai above the bedroom doorpost, guardian of the doorways, 3,000 years of continuous practice. The Zohar documents the demonic presence at the left of the threshold. The name on the right side holds it. Every observant Jewish household in the world has this above their bedroom door tonight. Second, Islamic. The Quran records that Suleiman was given authority over jinn specifically, and the Islamic tradition preserves a practice for the sleeping space that carries the same logic. Ayat al-Kursi, verse 255 of Surah al-Baqarah, is recited before sleep specifically, as protection against spirits who operate in the night hours. The Hadith literature records that this verse, recited and written above the sleeping space, holds a guardian assigned by God. Same function, same room. Third, Ethiopian. The gaze protective inscription tradition, texts and seal images placed above the doorways of sleeping rooms, is preserved in Ethiopian Orthodox monastic practice, with some scholars tracing its origins to pre-Solomonic covenant transmission through the Queen of Sheba. The Ethiopian Church has maintained protective inscription above bedroom doorways as a living practice for at least 16 centuries. Same room, same doorpost, same protection. Three traditions all emerging from the Solomonic inheritance, all sealing the same space. None of them using the hexagram, all of them using some form of the sign Solomon received, the oldest seal, the five-pointed star, the name that means guardian of the doorways. The bedroom doorpost is the spiritual frontier. This has been preserved. It is being offered to you tonight. I need to tell you when I finally understood this. I was in my mid-30s. SOAS, doctoral research. I was working through a set of Second Temple texts, cross-referencing demonological catalogues with protective inscription practices, late into the night in the reading room, the kind of hours when you are no longer entirely sure what day it is, and the fluorescent light is something you have stopped noticing. I was reading the Zohar passage on the mezuzah, the Sha'ar HaMezuzah, the description of the presence that waits at the left side of every threshold, the specific instruction about the right side of the doorpost, at the upper third of the frame, so that the name encounters whatever is approaching before it can cross. I noted the placement instruction, right side, upper third, slightly angled toward the room interior. I set the Zohar aside and picked up my notes on the Testament of Solomon. I read the passage about Ornias, the night attack, Solomon's prayer, Michael's ring. I sat there for a long time, because what I was holding in two separate documents, one Jewish mystical commentary, one ancient Greek demonological text, was the same instruction. Two traditions, two texts, different languages, different centuries, different religious frameworks, saying the same thing. Seal the bedroom door, use the sign, put the guardian at the threshold. The sleeper is vulnerable. The doorpost is the line. I went home that night and looked at my own bedroom doorpost, and I thought about something I had not thought about in more than 20 years. The gap above my mother's bedroom door. I was perhaps 8 years old when I first saw it. I was tall enough to see the top of the door frame if I stood on my toes, and I noticed once a folded piece of paper wedged into the tight gap between the wooden frame and the wall. On the right side, up high, almost flush with the ceiling, invisible unless you were looking at exactly that height. I thought it was a forgotten receipt, a scrap of something she had tucked there and forgotten. My mother's bedroom was not a place where a child asked questions about things he found. I never mentioned it. My mother died some years ago. 2 weeks after that night in the SOAS reading room, I called my sister in Nasuka. I said, "Do you remember the piece of paper above Mama's bedroom door? The one folded up in the gap at the top of the frame?" Silence. Then she said, "Yes, she had them above the bedroom doors. I always thought it was a Bible verse. She said her grandmother taught her. She called it the sign of Solomon's door." I asked my sister to go to the house and look. She went. The paper was still there. She took it down carefully and read me what was written on it over the phone. 3 letters, Hebrew, Shin, Dalet, Yod, Shaddai. Our mother had been writing 3 Hebrew letters above her bedroom doorpost every year of her adult life. Her grandmother had taught her. Her grandmother's grandmother before that. A chain going back at least 4 generations, women who could not read Hebrew as a language, who had no access to the Zohar or the Talmud or the Testament of Solomon, who called it simply the sign of Solomon's door. And they had preserved every detail correctly. The right side of the doorpost, the upper third of the frame, the 3 letters at the center. My mother was not being superstitious. She was being precise. Solomon had been protecting her sleep. She just called it something her grandmother taught her. I'm still not sure what to make of everything this means. But I know this. The knowledge traveled where it needed to travel. It moved through the hands of women who could not have named its origin, but who had not lost it. Not a single detail lost. Right side, upper third, 3 Hebrew letters. 3,000 years of doorpost protection, arriving intact in Nazuka. Here is what you're going to do. You need a clean white piece of paper, a pen, nothing else. Step 1. Draw the Pentalpha, the 5-pointed star in one continuous line. Begin at the top point, draw down to the lower right, cross to the middle left, draw across to the middle right, cross to the lower left, return to the starting point at the top, one line, never lifting the pen. The star is complete and closed. This is the shape the Testament of Solomon names as the seal, drawn in one stroke, returned to itself, unbroken. Step 2. Inside the star, at the center where the lines intersect, write 3 Hebrew letters. Shin, the letter that looks like a crown with 3 teeth. Dalet, a reversed door shape. Yod, a small stroke, like a comma raised upright. Shaddai. You do not need to read Hebrew. You are not writing a document, you are writing a name. Write it as carefully as you can. The name is recognizable across every form it takes. What you are doing is marking the seal with the identity of the one who authorizes it, guardian of the doorways of Israel. If you write it imperfectly, it does not matter. What matters is that you have drawn the seal and written the name, and both are there on the paper as they were meant to be. Step 3. Affix the paper to the right side of your bedroom doorpost. Not the left, the right side as you face into the room from the hallway. Not at eye level, higher. Upper third of the door frame, so the seal is the first thing encountered by anything approaching the threshold. Tape it, pin it, slip it into a gap between the frame and the wall as my mother did. The placement matters more than the method. Step 4. Speak these words aloud once as you place it. In the name of the God of Solomon, I seal this door. No witch, no familiar spirit, no night visitor enters here. This room belongs to the Lord. Not loudly, not dramatically. The voice of someone who knows whose authority stands behind the words. The declaration is the completion of the act. You are not requesting protection, you are sealing the door. The distinction matters. Solomon did not ask the demons to stay out. He used the seal, he declared the boundary. The Pentalpha held because it was placed, and because the placement was declared. Do both, then go inside, then sleep. You have done what Solomon did. Now let me tell you something about what this seal does and does not require from you going forward. It does not require renewal every night. The frankincense boundary is renewed weekly. The psalm is spoken nightly. The anointing is done daily. The seal on the doorpost is a one-time act. The mezuzah is not renewed every night. It is placed, it holds. Jewish law says it is checked periodically for damage and replaced if the ink has faded or the parchment is damaged. But the sealing itself is not repeated night after night. You have drawn the seal. You have written the name, you have spoken the declaration. The room is sealed. What you may return to, and this is where your own tradition guides you, is the spoken declaration when something in the room shifts, if you move bedrooms, if you sense the boundary has been tested, if something in the sleeping space changes. You look at the doorpost and speak the declaration again, not as though the seal failed, as a renewal of the marking that is already there. My mother put a new paper up each year. That is the tradition she received. There is nothing wrong with renewing the inscription annually. Solomon's priests renewed other boundary acts at regular intervals, and the annual cycle has a logic to it, a fresh marking at the beginning of the year, freshly written name, fresh declaration. But the original is not a daily practice. It is a seal. Seals hold. I want to say something about the simplicity of this. People often assume the most powerful things require the most elaborate preparations. that the ritual with many steps and many materials is necessarily more effective than the simple one. Solomon knew better. The Pentalpha was given to him in its simplest possible form. One shape, drawn in one line. Not a complex sigil requiring specific materials. Not a formula requiring priestly certification. A 5-pointed star, drawn on paper, with 3 letters at its center, placed on a doorpost, and a declaration spoken in the voice of someone who understands what they are doing. This is accessible to every person watching this tonight. You do not need a special piece of paper. You do not need a specific ink. You do not need to have studied Hebrew for years. You need a pen, a piece of paper, a doorpost, and the understanding of what you are placing there and why. The Archangel Michael did not give Solomon a complicated apparatus. He gave him a sign, and Solomon placed that sign above his bedroom door. Tonight, so do you. I have been studying these texts for 30 years, and I want to say something honestly about what I know and what I do not know. I know the textual sources. I know the historical transmission. I know the convergence of 3 separate traditions all pointing to the bedroom doorpost and to the name that means guardian of the doorways. What I cannot tell you with academic precision is the mechanism of what this seal blocks. I can tell you what the traditions claim. The Testament of Solomon claims it binds the spirits that afflict sleepers. The Zohar claims Shaddai holds the presence that waits at the left of the threshold. 3 distinct traditions, Jewish, Islamic, Ethiopian, all preserved the bedroom doorpost as the critical site, and all used some form of the Solomonic sign or name at that site. That convergence is not coincidence, that is recognition. Across continents and centuries, with every reason to develop differently, these traditions identified the same room and the same doorpost as the spiritual frontier of the house. And the chain of women in Sukkah, my great-great-grandmother, her daughter, my mother, preserved the practice with every detail intact. Right side, upper third, 3 Hebrew letters they could not read, Shin, Dalet, Yod, Shaddai. They did not need the academic apparatus to know what they had. They had the practice, they had the name, they had the doorpost, and every person in that chain slept in a bedroom where that name was written above the door. Draw the star tonight. 1 line, 5 points. Never lifting the pen. Write the name at its center. Shin, Dalet, Yod. Affix it to the right side of your bedroom doorpost, upper third. As you face into the room, speak the declaration aloud. In the name of the God of Solomon, I seal this door. No witch, no familiar spirit, no night visitor enters here. This room belongs to the Lord. This is not a new practice. This is a 3,000-year-old practice that you are returning to tonight. The sign the Archangel carried from heaven to Solomon. The name that has been written above bedroom doorposts without interruption since the temple stood. The declaration that transforms a physical mark into a sealed boundary. Your bedroom doorpost has been waiting for this. Place the sign. Speak the name. Sleep well tonight. Or perhaps don't, now that you know what is standing at the door.